Good morning. I have been wanting to share this story because I actually have the medical data to back up a personal story of how stress, grief, anxiety, fear, etc., those emotions can raise your inflammation and therefore inflammatory markers in your body. So have you heard of C-reactive protein, CRP? It's on your blood work probably. It is one of the key inflammatory markers that the medical community will look for to see if you have inflammation in the body. And if you have joint pain, I say, and the medical community backs it up, that you have inflammation. So anytime you have a symptom in your body, it is it's a inflammation saying, hey, hold on, we're in crisis here. Now, I won't go too into it. There's good inflammation when you get a cut or a scrape or a bump and the blood runs to it and goes to heal it, right? But I'm talking about chronic inflammation. And if you have chronic joint pain, so it's one thing if you twist your knee on the pickleball court and then it heals in a few days and then you're fine, right? That's not what we're talking about. You're in this group because you've had that knee pain or whatever pain for months, maybe even years. So you have chronic inflammation. So I'll try to be succinct here. 10 years ago, or 11 years ago, is when I had my last blood panel that read C-reactive protein. And my inflammatory, that marker, you want it to be below 1. That's the numbers that they use. I think it was something like 1.3, 1.4, something like that. So it was elevated. And I was already teaching the anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle. My then partner / boyfriend was an oncologist at Stanford. And he looked at those numbers and was like, oh, look at you. The anti-inflammatory coach has an elevated inflammatory marker. And I was like, However, that same doctor, boyfriend, also had hemophilia and had a complication and ultimately was dying and could have died any single day into the year 2015. He died in the beginning of 2016. So I think this was the summer of 2015 that I had this blood test. And so I was like, and I'm not like perfect on the anti-inflammatory diet, right? Like I'll have some cocktails, I'll have some sugar, whatever. Also while he was ill, he was seeking an experimental treatment and he was actually living in London for 9 months before he died. So I was going back and forth to London and therefore I was jet lagged on top of the emotional stress that I had that whole year, knowing that most likely he was going to die. He was doing everything he could to try to fix his blood hemophilia situation, but he ultimately couldn't. And so while my diet, and maybe, sure, you've got the travel elements and, we'll never know, right, exactly what the combination is because it's not an experiment where there's 1,000 people that had this exact same situation. But this is my knowing, my belief of the situation. So because of that emotional stress, I had that elevated inflammatory marker. Fast forward to a few months ago, I do not have health insurance. I have a health care plan, which is something better in my estimation. So I'm happy to tell you more about that later. But if I were, and they started a new program that if I were to show that I was metabolically healthy and that you had to pass 2 out of the 3 tests that they gave you as options, then I can get 20% off my monthly premiums. So I was like, okay, well, I want to show that I'm metabolically healthy. So the first one was glucose, passed that fine. And then the second one was C-reactive protein. And then if I didn't pass that for whatever reason, I could do a DEXA scan and show that I had low visceral fat. But I was nervous about the C-reactive protein because 1, it had been elevated before. And if it was elevated, here I am still the anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle coach. So I was nervous that maybe I had imposter syndrome and what I was teaching wasn't working, even though I deep down know that that's not true based on our results with everybody. But anyway, so I got the numbers back and sure enough, I was 0.81, which is below that 1 marker on the C-reactive protein. So I got 20% off my healthcare, which is good news. I have proven that I'm metabolically healthy. And to me, the biggest, most important thing is that I proved to myself that yes, the intense emotional stress that I had of every single day texting my then boyfriend and hoping that he was alive and therefore could text me back is pretty fucking stressful, excuse my French, right? So if you are in a situation where you're caring for a sick loved one, you have, or other things, you have a dysfunctional relationship with someone in your life, whether it's your spouse or a child or a coworker or your boss, or whatever other stressful situations you want to come up with, financial stress, the stress of having joint pain, that, oh my gosh, am I going to have a joint replacement? Is something going to go wrong? Am I going to be limited in what I can do? Am I going to have to give up my love of running or hiking or pickleball? I always talk about pickleball because I love pickleball, even though I don't play it that often. These stressors that we have in our life, maybe you have a stressful job. We have, a current client that works in politics, and politics is crazy right now. And even if you're not working in politics, but you're tuned into politics, it's probably causing you stress, right? So the diet and lifestyle stuff that I teach, I still think is very important. Otherwise I wouldn't teach it. But the reason that I say that Kenny's input and influence in our healing program is even more important than the diet and lifestyle and the supplements and the things that I'm going to teach you and tell you how to use, is because I'm the perfect example of I was a personal trainer 11 years ago. Still, I was eating, this way, gluten, dairy, soy, sugar-free. I was even using stress relief things, but it's a pretty hard situation to not have stress when your loved one is dying and you're waiting for it to happen at any moment, right? So, that's my proof. That's my proof that shows up in the blood work. And even if you don't, I'm not a huge fan of needing blood work or tests for anything, because we have our own intuition and knowing of what's going on in our body and how we're feeling. And that's why with this group, we are active people who, if you have joint pain, you want to get through it naturally. Ideally, you want to avoid pills, shots, and surgeries. You're attracted to Kenny and I and this group because natural healing is what perked up your ears, hopefully. And you want to step away from the orthopedic process of what they have to offer and the pain creams and the cortisone shots and all that. And so what we have to offer is to help you pull all these tools. And the reality is that both are important. Could you manage your thoughts and your stress and change your beliefs and therefore get out of pain? Yes, you can. It's harder to do if you're having beer and sugar and, all this other stuff. It's a lot harder to do. And so that's why the combination of what I bring to the table and what Kenny brings to the table is this secret sauce of making it all work together. So if this is resonating with you, if you've gone through the guide section in this book, if you've read my emails, if you've implemented some of these things and it's maybe helping, but just not fully, you're not over the hump of out of pain and on to just enjoying life and not having to think about it, reach out to me, send me a DM. You're welcome to put a comment in this video. And I can, connect with you and see what you're doing on the day-to-day, see what your motivations are, learn about your history, and then I can evaluate if our process is something that I think can help you. So that is my story for the morning, and I hope you guys are having a healthy, happy, stress-free day.